It's almost 5 o'clock on a Monday afternoon, and my husband challenged me to come up with a video idea that would help creatives, artists, and makers to fit in 1 hour of art making tonight. That's right, tonight. I'm wondering, can I do it? In this video, I will share 3 practical ideas that will help you to be creative, even if you think that you don't have the time. Hi, I'm Dr. B, the Creativity Sensei. I train artists and makers to transform their creativity, boost their mood, and find joy in their work. So let's dig in. First, you need to have an idea of what you want to do, and that can be the very hardest thing. My mom was a very talented painter, but she always struggled with coming up with subjects to paint. She would have me go through Google Photos and images. She'd say things like, find a picture of Vermont, or Canada, or mountains in Colorado. I would show her different scenes. She would say yay or nay, and some of the ones that she did like, I'd print out. And even with that, she often had trouble getting started. To begin, you could sit down right now and generate a list of 10 things that you want to do that are related to your art form. I have lists and lists and lists, but until I actually sit down to do the thing, well, they're just words on a piece of paper. All right, so assuming that you have your list, then you need to prioritize. What's something that you could do? What is something that will take time, but you could begin? For example, painting a landscape. Well, if you're working in oils, that is a pretty extensive project. However, if you need to first gather your paints, make sure your brushes are clean and useful, make sure that you have an appropriate size canvas, make sure that you have a scene in mind, or maybe it's going to be an abstract and you want to start with some colors. Any art form begins with an idea, a concept, and then you can get going on it. You have your list of 10 ideas. You've decided on one doable project, and in an hour this evening, you're going to get started. You are, tonight. No excuses. I don't know about your household, but many people live in homes where there are a lot of distractions. Television being number one. It's constantly jabbering away in the background. However, television is also a comfort. If you live alone, maybe that is your partner. Maybe there are people or shows that you turn on for comfort. And that's okay, right? So, what is a project that you might want to be able to do while you're sitting in front of the television? I'm thinking tonight that my project is going to be to finally place an order to Spoonflower for a scarf design that I have been thinking about for 5-6 months. I have it almost ready to go, but there's a little bit of tweaking that needs to be done. So tonight, in my hour, that's what I'm going to focus on. But you say, no, I'm not a visual artist. I'm not working on an electronic iPad. I'm a writer. I need my perfect space. I need my perfect notebook, my perfect pen. I need total silence, or I need to be working in a coffee shop and my favorite coffee shop won't be open tonight. You got to do it anyway. What is rearing its ugly head here is something called perfectionism. When you cannot begin until everything is perfect. Guess what? It's never going to happen. So you need to give yourself permission to just do it anyway. It's all right. What if you are a writer and you have a story idea? Something that you could do in an hour? You could outline that story, the key points. I use something that is a little bit different. It's called the Clockwise Method. I think I invented it, although you may see similarities to Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey because it is a circle. But think of it in terms of the face of a clock. At the top, we have 12 o'clock. And then we divide that into 4 parts. 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. You know what that looks like, right? So for your outline, maybe it's a short story. Maybe it's a whole novel. Maybe it's an entire series. In many, many cases, you can divide your story into 3 touch points. So if you're plotting out a novel, think about what might be happening at page 50. What needs to happen at page 100? That's going to be 6 o'clock. And then page 150 is about 9 o'clock. And then think ahead. You're getting to the end of your novel at 11:59. That's when you need the resolution, right? That's just before you write the words, the end. They lived happily ever after. Or everything was a total disaster. And then you can fill in other hours on that clockwise outline. You could fill in what might be happening at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 7 o'clock. You can get a little bit more detailed too. You could include what happens at 12:01, 1:15, but think about starting first. So in an hour tonight, draw the face of a clock on a piece of paper and then notch out 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and doodle away. Put it down on paper. I've done this many times. I use this method for a children's book that was transformed into a concert series. I have used it for a romance novel. I have used it for writing research papers, essays, articles, and I teach it to my students also because it's a little bit different than the linear outline. The beautiful thing about a circle is it can expand as well. And if you need to redraw this clock face on a bigger piece of paper, well, that's pretty easy to do. You can also do an electronic version. I think Canva would be a good place to start with that. They have something called the whiteboard, which is pretty amazing because it does sort of expand to fit with whatever it is that you're working on. So that would be a way that a writer could use 1 hour tonight. And I don't think you need to have total silence and solitude to do something like that. I think that sitting next to your kids or your partner after you have had your dinner, set the timer on your phone, and then see what happens. Remember, it's not going to be perfect, but this isn't the final draft. This isn't the document that you are sending to your publisher. This is just getting started and how you can make use of an hour tonight. What if you are into culinary art? Is there a recipe that you've been dying to try out? And you're going to say to me, but I don't have all the right ingredients. So you can do a little bit of research. You could use your 1 hour to go online and find some recipes, maybe from some of your favorite chefs, and see how you could modify their ideas to fit with the ingredients that you do have. Because cooking is always, I think, about improvising. There's a great show that takes place in France at Julia Child's home, and they have a lovely pyramid that easily shows you how to blend different flavors and use complementary taste to almost guarantee that any dish that you endeavor to make is going to be delicious. I'll try to find an image of that and link to that show in my show notes or description below. What else? What if you're working in industrial art? Industrial art are the things that I consider using hard materials. Jewelry making with gold or silver or wires and beads. Glass blowing, glass bending, woodworking, pottery. All of these things are working with materials that tend to be a little bit more challenging to manipulate. Begin by brainstorming some products that you might want to make. And then write up your cut list or dimensions if you're working in pottery. Sketch out some shapes and see how you can make your plan a little bit more solid so that when you do go to the studio, you have a plan to work with. I think that one of the biggest time wasters is when we get to our creative space and we don't know where to begin. It's happened to me tons and tons of times. And that's why having a due date can be super, super helpful. Other art forms, environmental, has to do with what is surrounding you. Are you an interior designer, a landscape designer? Are you thinking about remodeling a room? Or maybe a friend has asked you for some suggestions. You could begin in an hour to draw a floor plan using scale models and designs. Try to figure out where different pieces of furniture might fit. It's a whole lot easier to move things around on maybe paper and pencil. And I'm sure that there are a lot of apps that can be useful for this too. You get the idea. That's how we are going to use our hour tonight. So first we need to come up with some sort of a plan. We need to have an idea of what we are going to make. And then I don't care what's going on. You need to decide, this is my time. This is for me. This is how I am going to grab that time. I will check in with you by the time this video is published and let you know exactly what I pulled off tonight in my hour and whether my husband, his idea was a good one or not. So now it's after 5 and I need to close this video. A biento.